He was a young Iraqi recruited by U.S. intelligence after saving an American military officer who was nearly abducted by al-Qaeda. Wow, they call him the terrorist whisperer, and I have him with me now. I welcome author of The Terrorist Whisperer, Hamody Jasim. Hamody, thanks for being with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me today.
Now, your story is so interesting to me. And, again, thank you for what you've done for this country. But what provokes, a young Iraqi in your position to want to help the United States military?
Thank you for having me here today. I'm actually I was part of the fight against terrorism as well. I was a member of the Iraqi military at the time, and we were fighting terrorists all side by side with the American soldiers. When I was recruited, I was in a vital location, which is the Iraqi Ministry of Defense at the time, where probably around 15 to 16 terrorist operations that were happening inside of the building. So my job was to clear the dust out of the picture and to figure out who are the terrorists who are operating around the American soldiers who are going to conduct attacks and plots against American soldiers. So I was in the fight myself. I never wanted to see them take my country and take my freedom and get anybody hurt that was there to help me and help my country as well.
Now, and again, I can understand that. And to me, as an American, that seems like a very human element to want to defend your country, defend your freedom, defend your people from terror. But I have to ask you, because I still don't understand it, and I may never understand it. Why are some Iraqis, why do they follow that life, whether it be ISIS, al-Qaeda, or any other offshoot terrorist group? Why do they venture down that path? What is it about the life of jihad or the life of terror or insurgency that makes it worth it to them to join those forces?
As you know, we've been fighting terrorism for such a long time, and during the surge in Iraq between 2005 and 2006, we had cleaned Iraq out of the radical Islamization. We have taken all al-Qaeda members that were arrested at the time and put them behind bars. Unfortunately, when President Obama pulled the troops out of Iraq, these individuals who are very high-profile terrorists were handed back to the Iraqis, and they were not put in a proper detaining facilities. 90% of the ISIS fighters that you're looking at in the fight right now were actually detainees and were arrested back then. But when we handed them to the Iraqis who were not ready at the time to handle that kind of terrorist profiles, they were able to break out of prison within 45 days when the U.S. troops pulled out of Iraq. So we did the job. We completed it back then. This is the hard work. We gave many soldiers, about 17,381 American soldiers were injured during that time to put these guys behind bars. Unfortunately, when the troops got pulled out of Iraq, these guys were all breaking free out of prison. And this is who you're facing today, calling ISIS. It's the same individuals who are al-Qaeda fighting back then, now calling themselves the Islamic State. It's almost the same franchise.
So there's been a lot of controversy and discussion, especially during our election process, about Iraq in general, if the United States should have been there in the first place. Now, I know that your outlook is going to be a little bit different from mine, but, what are your thoughts going back to that initial decision under President George W. Bush? Do you think that the United States had any business being in your country?
Absolutely. President Bush didn't only change my life and change the life of millions of Iraqis. You have to look on the positive side of Iraq right now. Despite what's happening in Iraq right now, the Iraqis were able to stand up and fight ISIS. It's the same exact individuals that worked for Saddam Hussein back then and who were working among his intelligence agencies. It's the same individuals who are fighting among al-Qaeda and ISIS today. So if we have left them where they were back in the day, only God knows what could they have came up with now. But I'd rather fight them in a really hard situation, chasing them around the desert, than having them be comfortable trying to come up with a nuclear bomb or any kind of weapons that will harm the world.
Right. Well, thank you for everything that you've done for the United States and for your country as well. It's so refreshing to hear. Now, the last thing I have to ask you, and I know this is a very complex question, but where do you see the future of Iraq and Syria? What do you see in the coming 5, 10 years? Where do you see this fight going? Do you see a peace possible? What do you think?
What I think really that the United States needs to come back into the fight. When we pulled the troops out of Iraq specifically, we lost a lot of our relationships with the Iraqis. Literally everything we have built just went under the ground. It was almost like handing a house to someone with no roof. We need to come back to the fight. We need to help the Iraqis to get ISIS out of Iraq. I think we can defeat Islamic terrorism. We can defeat the radical Islam, not just on the battle, but also defeating the ideology with education as well.
What do you think about this new modern warfare that President Obama was particularly fond of, which was using drone strikes instead of our men and women, our boots on the ground? Do you think that we lose a lot of intelligence gathering, opportunities when that is the way of our war?
Absolutely, we do. In my experience through all the years fighting terrorists, using drones, that it means you're burning evidence at the same time. We don't only want to get rid of one terrorist. We're looking to get rid of a whole entire cell. So sometimes we may have a leader, but if we kill this leader by a drone attack, we may lose all the evidence that's in his hands. It is important that we get closer to these terrorists to find all the evidence and all the rest of the information that we need to find out about. Drones attack has never been a good a style of attack, because if any civilians get injured during these attacks, the United States will be facing a lot of trouble with the world about that. So,
yeah, of course, and you lose a lot of the relationship building as well. And you were able to go in there, and you were able to gather a lot of intelligence, and you were able to help, our United States military. So thank you for everything that you've done. You're welcome back on my show anytime. I have so many questions for you. Take care, and God bless America.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
Coming up.